So my name is Janaye Ingram, and I'm the DC Bureau Chief for National Action Network. We're a civil rights organization focused on criminal justice, education, immigration, healthcare, jobs, housing, you name it. If it's a civil rights issue, we're probably going to be doing something on it. I also have many other opportunities to engage the community, including being a board member for an organization called the Women in Entertainment Empowerment Network, or WEEN, as we call it. And it's basically an organization focused on creating a more balanced portrayal of women in the media. I'm also on the editorial advisory board for an online magazine called Empower Magazine. And the goal of the magazine is to engage communities, not just with news, but through action as well. So encouraging people to not just read about something, but to find a way to take action on an issue. And then I've also started a program, it's not in collaboration with an organization that I've worked with called Ambassadors of Hope. And it's sort of came out of the need in my community where I'm from, Camden, New Jersey, to end violence and provide opportunities for young people through education. And so it's a scholarship and mentorship program really designed to give young people a sense of hope, which is why it's called Ambassadors of Hope. I have two friends who were able to also succeed in life, if you want to say that. And we've done that despite our humble upbringing. And so it's a way for us to go back to children from poverty and from low-income areas, crime-infested areas, and say, we made it out, so can you. So we'll be the ambassadors of hope for you. And I also write an online feature on a website called Loop 21. It's a weekly feature. And I write about politics and do other media, including radio and television. So that's a little bit about me. I first heard about Give1Project while I was on a panel with Sean Young, and he mentioned a little bit about the program and how he founded it and sort of what he was doing, and it was very interesting, but obviously we were both on the panel, so there wasn't that opportunity to really engage in dialogue about the organization in depth. You know, I just sort of heard a little bit about it and what he said on the panel. And then, you know, a few months later we decided to meet, and when we met he told me more about what the organization was doing, and it really, you know, sounded like an opportunity that I would like to be part of. And so he mentioned that he was looking to bring 10 US young people, young professionals to Paris for 10 days, and so I applied, and I'm so excited and happy that I did. I think for me, with so much of my life sort of focusing around nonprofit engagement, community engagement, civil rights, that sort of thing, this trip has really been eye-opening. I spoke yesterday to a woman, I think a reporter, and she was asking me like a similar question: had I ever been to Paris, and had I ever been to France? And I have. I've been to Paris before. I've been to Nice and Monaco. But the experiences that you have as a tourist are more about sort of the facade of Paris. And you know, you look at all of the buildings and you visit the museums, and you think you come back with a sense of what Paris is or what France is. But what I've learned in this trip is that in order to really understand the place, you really have to talk to the people, which is sort of almost an interesting development in my own mind, because I know that through my own work, understanding a community, you have to talk to the people. And yet, you know, when I came before, there wasn't sort of that let me talk to the people sort of approach. But I think this time, now coming and seeing, I see some of the same struggles that we face in the US, but I also see that in a way Paris is where the US was in terms of race and things maybe 50 years ago. And so that's interesting to me, because now I get to look at what's happening in this country through a different lens, and I get to observe the developments to see, you know, what's happening here versus what happened in the US. And also I think there's an opportunity for me as someone in civil rights and now working in civil rights to sort of say to people here in France, especially young people who are working on these issues, be careful of the pitfalls that we saw in the US. Here's how to avoid them. So I think coming here and having this experience has been, it's been inspirational, it's been thought-provoking, engaging, intriguing. And so I'm really looking forward to not just going home and how this trip will influence my life and my work in the US, but also continuing the dialogue with the young people here, part of, that are part of Give1 or part of AGPR, to really say, here are some lessons that we've learned, and here's what we think, I think you might be able to do differently, and maybe help France get to a better place in 50 years than where the US currently is. Because I think while we've made significant strides, and I will never say that we haven't, I think there's always a lot of work to do. There's still so much to do, and we're seeing what we're seeing with immigration, the new immigration law, and how people view immigrants, and some of the voting rights restrictions that were brought about in 2012 and 2011, things of that nature. I think if I could be of assistance to the young French in that way, I will, and actually I will. It's not if I will do that. So I think that the trip has provided me sort of that sort of connection as well. There are so many. It's hard to pinpoint a specific moment, but because to me everything was so enriching, and I definitely, I think, appreciated having a chance to talk to the First Lady. I mean, that's something that you don't just get to walk into any country. I mean, people in our country don't get to meet our First Lady in a way that we came here and met with the First Lady. So I think that is an experience that's sort of up there in terms of something that I won't necessarily forget. But at the same time, having conversations with Humanity in Action, for instance, the other night, and getting to engage with other young leaders from Paris and hearing about their stories and their struggles and the work that they do, how they see the world and how they want to change the world. That's something that I won't ever forget either. Or meeting Toomey, who led the march from Marseille to Paris. That's something that I won't forget. So I don't know that I can pinpoint one. There are so many. I just think overall the trip itself has really been inspiring, and I'm so glad that I was selected to participate. I'm just really fascinated by Sean. I think he is just what the world needs right now. Being part of this experience, obviously you get to see one side of someone. If you're sitting on a panel, you're just meeting them sort of for the first time, and you sort of get, the facade part of it, similar to my experience and my first experience in France. You marvel at what you see, but then getting to know him and getting to see where his passions are, and just watching how he has been so committed to Give1 and this idea of developing and exposing other young leaders is really fascinating to me, and specifically because I think in the US there is this dynamic of sort of selfishness, if you will. I think a lot of young leaders are somewhat selfish, and it's a gift and a curse, because in some ways that selfishness helps them get to the top and succeed and achieve success at a young age. On the other side, I think there's sort of that competition factor, the competitive nature of being selfish and of wanting to do better than your peers, or of wanting to have opportunities that others don't. And what I'm most inspired by Sean about, and what I like most about him, is that he is comfortable in the place that he is, that he's not going to compete with other young leaders in the way that he doesn't expose their abilities or their competencies. And so I think this program is perfect for the U.S. and I hope that other young people are inspired by it, because there does need to be more camaraderie and more support from young leaders to each other to say, you know, I've succeeded, I'm going to help you succeed, and I'm going to help you show the world your talents. I don't have to hide your talents in order to expose mine. And so I really hope that the U.S. will really love this project in the way that France has, and I hope that maybe next year or in a year or two that we can bring 10 French students or students from Japan or another country to the U.S. and say, here's the First Lady, here are all of these fascinating people, here's a civil rights activist like my boss, or here, you know, here are some young students who have a different experience than you and how you can learn from them. And so that's really what I hope to see happen over time with Give1 in America.